Ziyanda, a good afternoon to you, our time, and the AU summit wrapping up today. Lots has happened, including the election of the new African Union Commission chairperson. Perhaps let's start there, some congratulatory messages coming on board.
Absolutely, plenty of congratulatory messages coming through for the Foreign Minister and now AU Commission Chairperson Mahmoud Yusuf. He was voted for by quite a significant number here at the AU Commission, and South Africa's own President Cyril Ramaphosa describing it as a good moment to unite and continue with the unification process of the African continent. The same applies with Algeria's ambassador Salma Haddadi, who is now the Deputy Commission Chairperson, and really it was a tie between Algeria and Egypt, and South Africa, because of its tense relationship with Morocco over the issue of what's happening over territorial sovereignty in Western Sahara. It was also deemed as a win for our delegation, but also, of course, the continent. She is a woman. There's been lots of congratulatory messages, but on social media, I must say, Koli, I've seen quite a few messages, a meltdown from some Kenyan MPs after Raila Odinga fell out in the fourth round of voting for the AU Commission Chairperson. He went on an aggressive campaign to try and gain that particular post, and he lost. And there's a big view from some quarters that part of the reason why Raila Odinga did not actually win is because of his own tensions with the incumbent there, William Ruto, a perception that Kenya is consistently aligning itself with the West. And so not everyone are happy with the outcome, but certainly Djibouti's Mahmoud Yusuf winning with a majority.
We've got a new AU chair, President Lorenzo, and we've got a new AU Commission chair from Djibouti. We think the capability of both those leaders is just going to lift the continent to higher levels of real hands-on management of the unity process on the continent. And we're also very, very pleased that we got one of our daughters, daughter of South Africa, Mateboge, to become a commissioner for infrastructure. South Africa being the champion for infrastructure, this for us is a real cherry on top, because it's really going to put us at the center of infrastructure development.
All right, and those were the congratulatory messages, ZiyandaNgcobo, from President Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's end off the conversation about him talking about the SANDF troops who will be able to return home soon, and that is once the Great Lakes issue has been resolved. Did he expand on that, on what he meant exactly?
Well, you know, President Koli, very diplomatic, sometimes roundabouts in his answer if he doesn't want to give a direct answer, because the question was the fact that there's a perception that the main people who should be sitting around the table to resolve this conflict in the Great Lakes region, I'm talking about the DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi and Paul Kagame on the other side from Rwanda, that this has not been happening. In Tanzania last week, if not the weekend before, when the East African Community and SADC met, Felix Tshisekedi was absent. He was also absent at this African Union summit. There was a high-level panel discussion on the sidelines of the summit, and by virtue of it being described as a high-level panel discussion, presidents are supposed to be in that meeting, and this did not happen. And you'll also recall that there have been some quarters that are saying that, well, they want a different mediator to the SADC region, perhaps the other regional blocs on the continent will be able to assist with resolving this issue. And suffice to say, to respond to your question, Koli, President Ramaphosa saying that, well, the new Peace and Security Council will table a report, would have tabled a report today on how to resolve this issue, not only when it comes to the Eastern DRC, but also when it comes to Libya. And that the report will be binding on all AU member states. And he says the sooner that this happens, the sooner we can bring our troops back home. So not very specific about timelines. Under what circumstances then would the South African government, through that SADC block and mission with UNESCO, would he or the South African government return our troops back home from the Eastern DRC? So there's a big sense, especially from our government, you would have heard him when he spoke at the repatriation ceremony, that now would not be an opportune moment to return our troops. On the issue, of course, about whether or not they're capacitated well enough, there wasn't much that was said other than what has been said before, which has been dismissed, and that there's no underfunding or undercapacitation by our troops.